Rich, first group of lads back for pre-season tomorrow. Excited to get some plans, start putting them into action?
Yeah, very excited to get all the boys in. We've had a lot of work to do in the last sort of 3 or 4 weeks in terms of getting the squad to where we want to get it to. I think there's still a little bit of work to do in that respect, but we're very happy with the training venues and facilities that we've managed to secure. Really happy with the staff we've managed to put together. We're organised and we're ready to go, and I think the club have made some improvements and some things that we viewed very much. We knew we could get some short-term gains as quick as we can, even in things like getting the changing room done and some of the aesthetics around the gym and that sort of thing. So hopefully the place will have a little bit of a different feel to it. The staff are excited and hopefully that transmits to the players as well.
And what's the early focus for you in the sort of first few weeks of pre-season?
A couple of things really. I mean, I dare say not frustrated, but understand that at this time of the year, getting everybody in for day one, throwing the squad together late like we have is proved difficult. So, guys are staggered coming in sort of weeks 2, 3 and 4. So the first couple of weeks, I think what's important is we lay down some foundations on how we're going to operate. The standards that we expect in terms of attitude and professionalism and things like that. I think early doors we're going to be introducing new terminology and language, so that's going to be one of the early focuses, while at the same time, and the boys hopefully might not watch this interview before they come to training tomorrow, but we'll be fairly tough over the first 2 or 3 weeks as well. We just see it as a great opportunity, particularly with some of the younger end of the squad, to make it tough and take them to some pretty dark places, if you like, and test them in that regard. Obviously, later on towards the back end of November, we're getting a little bit more experience, which I think, while we'd rather have them in from day one, it'll also, I would say, give us a timely boost. And I know when blokes like Steve Southern and Isaac John come in, they'll up the ante and raise the bar a little bit.
You touched on it a bit there with so many new players and obviously new coach staff coming in. How much of it in these early stages is implementing your culture that you want around the place?
We've got some ideas and some plans for that. I think early doors it's up for us as a coaching staff to set the standards and get on the messages that we want and be right on top of the players. We've also got some plans moving down the track to get a little bit of external help in that regard, and do some workshops based around team dynamics and the synergy and how we want to be perceived as a team, and moving forward that'll be a vital component of our training or what we do as a group, away from being actually on the footy field or in a gym. And I think one of the other things is to get to know each other, which there's no better place really than on a training field when you're working hard.
But is that part of also looking a bit further down pre-season in January, going to France for a week? Is that obviously the weather's one part of it, but also bring lads together for a week where they're all living in each other's pockets?
Well, in terms of France, I think again we've got some other plans. We are going to try and get away for 2 or 3 days when everyone is here in December, and just before we sort of break up for Christmas and the Boxing Day game, if we can. We've not got that rubber stamp just yet, but I'm looking at 1 or 2 venues within this country where we can get away for 2 or 3 days, and we'll use that as as something along those lines, as well as a mini training camp, if you like. And as we said, we're going to France. We'll get different things out of that trip in terms of we'll have the opportunity to go into a camp style training, if you like, and increase the volume, certainly in terms of hours of what we do, but structure it in a slightly different way to what we would if we're training in what is obviously more adverse weather over here. And we've also got a game at the end of it as well, and particularly happy to be playing a very big French side, and I think that'll be a test that we need to see how we're going to go against those bigger, more physical sides early on.
And those pre-season games you mentioned, Catalan, Leeds on Boxing Day, and also Castleford. There's 3 really good tests. I know it's going for pre-season.
Yeah, I mean Leeds is a different one. The festive fixture is obviously different because I think both clubs will be mindful of who they're playing. Leeds have got a lot of representative players at that time, and we've got some guys that will be getting towards the end stages of rehabilitation. They might be ready to play, but at the same time, it's highly unlikely we're going to risk blokes like Peter Fox and Danny Kermond in a fixture like that. But nonetheless, it's a great occasion, being Boxing Day at Headingley as well, to put a new team out on show. And as I say, we've got France, which will be a very tough test, as tough a test as they come, which will be great for us to see how we're progressing at the time. And then obviously a derby game down here, which hopefully will ensure a good crowd again. Our nearest and dearest rivals.
You've obviously seen Isaac John play. To sign him, tell the fans who might not have seen much of him what he's like to play and what attracted him to you to bring him here for the next 3 years.
Well, he's coming into the country as a bit of an unknown quantity. He came onto my radar through one of his former teammates that I actually coached at Hull FC. I'll not tell you his name just yet, but who threw him up as a young player. I think he was 18 or 19 then. He'd just come out of the junior Kiwis of outstanding potential and very skillful, and he'd be a player that would be worth keeping our eye on. I've followed his progress very keenly. He's had a couple of good runs in the Warriors side and one successful run in particular where I don't think they lost a game, and just what's been unfortunate for him is picked up bits of injuries and niggling injuries at times when he's been on those runs, and I dare say the emergence of Sean Johnson is a very special talent, and the form of James Maloney has sort of blocked his path a little bit with the Warriors, but at 22 now he's looking to play a little bit more regular first grade. I'm very pleased that we managed to get the jump on him, and the club have done well to not only secure his signature but gain his entry into the country. But I think we have seen some players that have been just a little bit under the radar in his position as well that have come into the country and been very, very successful. Michael Dobson is one guy that springs to mind, and Rangi Chase. I'm not comparing Isaac to either one of those players, but he's a very confident and skillful ball player. He's got a great kicking game, and I think the opportunity to steer his own team around the park will be one that he's really looking forward to.
Any other gaps in the playing roster you hope to sort of fill before the season starts?
Yeah, one or two. Probably looking for another back, potentially someone that can have a look at fullback as well. We're also looking at the depth in the pivotal positions. I think it's fair to say we may look to introduce one or two more new faces in those roles, and probably the most difficult one at the moment that we're looking to fill is probably for an old-fashioned number 8, if you like, a big ball carrying forward. I think we've got a nice array of blokes that can play in the middle of the field, but if we could just look for a little bit more grunt up front, I think that finishes off nicely. Not too much, and as I say, from a club point of view, we need to make sure it all fits in our budget and what we're already committed to.
There's a real buzz around the city about the next season, still 4 months away, reflected in sort of season ticket sales. You obviously have that feeling as well?
Yeah, I think so. I think being new into the place, it's a massive challenge. I think the job in itself a challenge, but one that we're attracted to because, as I talked about earlier, we can see some pretty big gains to be made, and getting the roster right as quick as we can will certainly help us with that. But I'm happy with the way it's shaping up. One of the outstanding things what I found is the people within the club. The bunch of volunteers that are helping us get things how we want them internally. The groundsman that is an old-fashioned groundsman, but straight away the help he's going to give us is enormous. And some of the people in the surrounding areas and our partners, like we talked about in terms of training grounds and training facilities, have been very accommodating and really helpful. So to me there's a real spirit amongst the club, community spirit, family spirit, whatever you want to call it. And I know there's in terms of excitement. I met some fans the other night who you can understand after what they've had to go through and the uncertainty, particularly from last season, that they see this as a fresh start, and obviously there's a new team coming in. There's plenty of hard work still to do, and you know, certainly Rome wasn't built in a day, but I do feel like already, you know, we've got the desire and the capability to very much steer it in the right direction.